The Unsinkable ship begins its maiden and final voyage.
In the crow's nest, a lookout strains to see the unseen. The fatal obstacle, carved from a glacier years before, waited silently in the shipping lane. The side of the ship brushed against the mountain of ice.
Icy Atlantic water erupted into the ship's heart, drowning her power and hope. Captain Smith understood the dreadful truth. His magnificent ship was doomed.
Frantic distress calls pulsed into the night, a plea racing across the silent radio waves.
The chaotic evacuation began, with far too few lifeboats for all the souls on board. As water claimed the grand staircase, time ran out for the ship and those still aboard. Her stern rose toward the stars in a final, terrifying spectacle before the final plunge. Then, silence. The great ship vanished into the abyss, 2 miles down.
At dawn, the Carpathia arrived, a beacon of hope amidst a field of ice and sorrow.
705 were saved, haunted by memories. Over 1,500 souls were lost to the freezing sea.
The search began here, with this set of numbers transmitted in her final moments.
But early technology was a toy against the crushing pressure of the deep ocean. The deep-sea pressure here could crumple steel like paper, a barrier to all early efforts. Decades spawned wild ideas, magnets, ping-pong balls, schemes doomed by the sea's scale.
By the 1950s, technology inched forward, but the ocean remained a formidable opponent.
The deep sea claimed another tool, a harsh lesson in the cost of underestimation.
Then entered an unlikely hunter, a millionaire adventurer named Jack Grimm.
His expedition even included a monkey, which nearly caused a mutiny among the Caucasian scientists.
The hunt was on, using state-of-the-art side-scan sonar to paint a picture of the seabed.
They scanned the seabed, strip by meticulous strip, seeking any anomaly in the mud.
A spike in the magnetometer. A signature of metal. Could this finally be the wreck?
But the ocean floor, mile after mile, revealed only mud, rocks, and crushing monotony.
A glimpse of something man-made, a propeller shape that sparked a surge of hope.
The promising clue vanished. The sea, once again, had guarded its secret.
He secured a crucial partnership with the U.S. Navy, though their goal was different.
His secret weapon was a new deep-tow video system, named Argo, after the mythical ship.
Argo descended into the perpetual night, its lights a tiny sun in the abyss. Its cameras peered into the void, a lonely vigil over an endless, muddy plain. First, they found the Navy's lost submarines, completing their official mission. And there, they observed a crucial pattern, a long trail of debris leading from the wreck.
They switched strategy, from interpreting ambiguous sonar to searching with pure vision. Days passed with only sediment and rock, the clock ticking down on their remaining time.
Then, a single, untouched plate appeared, a stark artifact from another world.
Then another piece, and another. They were on a path, following a trail of crumbs.
Then, A massive, familiar shape filled the screen. The riveted plates of a ship's boiler.
It was a boiler from the Titanic's engine room, unmistakable, sitting upright in the mud.
After 73 years, the search ended, not with a shout, but with a stunned, reverent silence. The date the Titanic's 73-year mystery of location was finally solved. The bow itself, remarkably intact, rested peacefully as if parked on the ocean floor. Her name, still visible but being slowly consumed by rust-eating microbes. The stern lay nearly 2,000 feet away, shattered by its violent descent and implosion.
Then, the personal artifacts emerged. A single leather shoe, standing upright on the mud.
Pairs of shoes, marking where bodies once lay, the organic material long gone.
The next year, humans returned in the deep-diving submersible Alvin to see for themselves.
A South Asian human eye, peering through a tiny viewport, gazed directly upon the legendary wreck.
A tiny robot, Jason Jr., was sent on a tether to venture inside the broken hull.
It navigated the ruins of the grand staircase, finding a chandelier still hanging.
A ghostly remnant of the ship's vanished opulence, shimmering in the submarine's light. Artifacts brought to the surface told silent, poignant stories of moments frozen in time.
Some sought to bring larger pieces home, like this 20-tall section of the hull.
The portholes, with glass still intact, became windows between 1912 and the present. Time has not stopped. The ship is dissolving, its structure collapsing year by year.
Strange, icicle-like rusticles made of microbes are slowly consuming the iron hull.
It is returning to the sea from which it came, slowly fading into the eternal darkness. Some truths and some graves are perhaps meant to remain in the quiet of the deep.
The Titanic's story endures, a timeless lesson in hubris, tragedy, and the sea's power.
She was hailed as practically unsinkable, a testament to the arrogance of her era.
Built by thousands in Belfast, she was the pinnacle of industrial ambition and skill.
For the wealthy, she offered luxury, rivaling the finest hotels on both sides of the Atlantic.
For immigrants in steerage, she represented hope and a new beginning in America.
Her 4 funnels symbolized an era's boundless confidence in technology and progress.
Multiple ice warnings reached the ship, but the messages never made it to the bridge in time.
At 11:40 p.m., Lookout Fleet saw it. A dark mass directly ahead, too close to avoid.
Hard a starboard. Full astern! The commands were given, but the ship was too massive.
The wireless operators stayed at their posts until the power failed, saving hundreds.
Many stories of sacrifice emerged, like the Strausses, who chose to stay together.
The band played hymns to calm the crowd, their music lasting until the very end.
For those in lifeboats, it was a horrifying, silent movie of a giant dying before them.
The lights failed, then the hull groaned and snapped, sending the two halves on separate plunges. By dawn, only an empty, calm sea, littered with deck chairs and debris, remained.
The world awoke to headlines of unprecedented catastrophe, shocking the global community.
We adhered to the guidelines. Official inquiries on both sides of the Atlantic sought answers and assigned new safety rules.
The disaster sparked immediate reforms, enough lifeboats for all, and a 24-hour radio watch.
Early explorer Risdon Beasley tried using underwater explosives to create sound maps. His idea was clever: use sound echoes to map the seafloor. But the technology was too crude.
Grimm, a colorful Texan oilman, funded his dream with poker winnings and investor cash.
They placed acoustic beacons on the seabed to create a precise navigation grid.
The last known position was just the center of a vast, uncertain search area.
Ocean currents that night pushed the sinking ship and all debris away from the radioed spot. Grimm's team upgraded to a more powerful deep-tow sonar for their second attempt.
After weeks of battling weather and equipment, exhaustion and frustration set in. Was that it? The ambiguous image would haunt them. A tantalizing but unconfirmed clue.
Argo's powerful lights were crucial. They were the only sun in that eternal night.
The French team methodically mowed the lawn with sonar, narrowing the search zone.
Time was their greatest enemy.
They had just 12 days after the Navy mission ended.
Time was their greatest enemy. They had just 12 days after the Navy mission ended.
A field of coal, spilled from the ruptured bunkers, was the first major debris field.
Fragile glass, surviving the brutal 2-mile plunge, reflected their lights like a mirror.
The debris field was over a mile long, a surreal trail of a civilization's shattered pieces.
The true location was finally recorded, 13 miles from her last distress call. The full, tragic geography of the wreck was revealed. 2 main pieces and a long trail.
The anchor that never reached New York Harbor, forever secured in its place.
The social heart of the ship was now a collapsed void, open to the deep sea.
For the first time since 1912, a human tool made physical contact with the Titanic.
It ventured into private staterooms, revealing glimpses of interrupted lives and luxury.
Each recovered object was a tangible link to an individual person lost in the disaster.
Salvage operations sparked fierce ethical debate. Was this archaeology or grave robbing?
The big piece finally broke the surface, a huge section of the ship's hull.
The public could now stand before a massive piece of the legend, separated by glass.
Advanced imaging now allows us to see inside the wreck without ever disturbing it.
Comparative photos show the alarming rate of decay. The ship is disappearing.
The lure of the wreck remains, as shown by modern, commercially funded expeditions.
It is, above all, a mass grave, a site demanding respect and solemn remembrance.
The 73-year gap taught humanity humility before the ocean's vast, unforgiving scale. They were not just names on a manifest. They were people, with hopes, dreams, and lives.
It sways in the deep currents, a final, lonely sentinel in the endless night.
The Titanic's story is a permanent mark on history, a tragedy forever remembered.